Well, hello scrappers, Mike here, welcome back to my channel. And just when we thought we were finally done with the saga of Ken's rags and filters, getting the gold and silver out of them, I'm cleaning up the lab, getting rid of all the various debris around here. What do I find but all the metal that I recovered from the incineration of Ken's filters. Now, the incineration was kind of a circus. It didn't go well. And the pot I had the stuff in melted through. We had a lot of hot lava go down into my foundry furnace. And I fished all this stuff out. I rehydrated it all. His rags and filters did not behave the way I expected. They turned into this black lava which congealed as hard as rock. And I rehydrated it all. But then I filtered out all of the lumps and chunks and stuff out of it before I treated the ash for recovery of gold and silver. And I've got like 5 videos covering all that. And I got some gold, and I thought I was done with this project. Then I'm looking at this bucket of metal. Now some of this metal is from the bottom of my pot, which melted through, and some of this metal is stuff that was mixed in with the rags and filters. And some of this, I don't even know what it is. It's not metal, I don't know what it is. But all this metal it looked like copper cemented out on it. And, well, it's been sitting in this bucket for a few weeks now. It's all dried out. And the metal that is cemented out on it, a lot of it's flaking off. See that black powder in there? That black powder looks suspiciously like something I need to test for the presence of gold before I finally put this series of videos to bed, okay? Because there might be yet more gold mixed in with this stuff. Because if copper cemented out on all this metal, precious metals might have cemented out on it too. There might be some gold there might be some silver, some platinum group metals. Hard to say. I guess I have to test it. So I think what I need to do is I need to separate this black powder from these big chunks, get it in the fume hood, get it dissolved in some acid, and then test it with some stannous chloride to see what we've got here before I can finally put this project to bed once and for all. Okay? Ken, your projects, they're never ending. Okay, so let me get started. I'm thinking that step 1 for this stuff is I need to separate the powder from the metal in here. And first thing I think I'm going to do is just see if I can knock any more powder off of this stuff just by banging it around a little. Ooh, dust. I put on a dust mask because I figured this was going to create some dust, and I figured I didn't want to breathe that dust, so. Now, in an ideal world, nitric acid would be cheap or free and easy to get, and I would just dissolve all this metal in nitric acid, alright? Well, this is not an ideal world. Nitric acid, expensive, hard to get in most places, unless you make it yourself, and even then it's kind of a pain in the butt. So, rather than dissolving all of this metal in various acids, I'm just going to dissolve the little bit of powder that doesn't make it through this screen. And this is a 10 to the inch screen. Alright, so there's what we're going to dissolve. So I need to think about this. Do I want to give it a hydrochloric acid boil first, like I've treated all of the rest of Ken's stuff, or do I want to go straight to nitric with this stuff and see what I can dissolve out of it? I don't know. Let me think about it. Let me get this in a beaker and think about where we go from here. Okay, now that I've got this stuff, the question of how to deal with it comes up. So, what I've done with every other extraction from the remains of Ken's filters and rags was give it a boil in muriatic acid, or a couple of boils, and then go to Aqua Regia. Well, that left a lot of copper contamination in the liquid. And I'm thinking there's going to be even more copper in this stuff, because this is metal that's cemented out on the steel in there. And that liquid, that rehydrated liquid, was really, really full of copper compounds. So I got a feeling this is probably going to be a large percentage copper. So maybe a better strategy, although it's going to take a lot of nitric acid, would maybe be to boil this stuff in nitric acid first, and then go to Aqua Regia on anything that doesn't dissolve. So, yeah, I'm thinking that's probably the way to go. So let me get this in the fume hood, and we'll treat it with some nitric acid and see what happens. Okay, since I've decided to go with a nitric acid treatment for this stuff, I'm having second thoughts about doing it in this little beaker, because I can see there being a potential for boil over here. So we'll do it in a 2-liter beaker. Get all this stuff out of here. Let me put in some distilled water. Got some organics floating in there. Cover it up here. Turn the heat on. Not too crazy hot. A little bit of nitric acid left in this bottle. I'm going to have to bust out another one before I'm done, I'm sure. But let's put a little bit of nitric acid on this stuff and see what happens. I expect we'll probably get a pretty vigorous reaction, if that really is mostly copper in there, especially once it warms up some. So that's about 6 milliliters. We'll leave it at that for the moment. I'm sure it'll take more. It takes a lot of nitric acid to dissolve copper. Let me get the fume hood going, and we'll just wait for this to warm up and see what kind of reaction we get. Well, it's been just a few minutes. It's starting to warm up a little bit. Got a little bit of bubbling going on. Nothing too serious yet. I expect once it warms up a little bit more, though, things are going to get a bit more vigorous. Well, it's been a little while longer. This has heated up some more. You can't really see too well with the condensation on the inside of the beaker, but we are getting some orange fumes on the inside, and the bubbling is getting a little bit more furious. So the nitric acid's definitely attacking something. I assume it's copper going into solution. We'll just let this continue until I don't see more reaction, and I'll put some more nitric acid in, and I'll keep that up until it looks like it's chewed up as much of the base metal in there as it's gonna. So this probably takes a good part of the afternoon. We'll be back when something interesting happens. There, it's a little while later, and I think the orange fumes are showing up a little better now. So, yeah, we definitely got some metal going into the solution in there. Just gonna let it cook. And it's fizzing away pretty good down there, so I don't think it needs any more acid right now. I'll just let it go until the fumes start dissipating. I'll put more in. Alright, I'm thinking maybe it's time for another shot of nitric acid. The fumes are starting to dissipate. There's not a whole lot of activity going on in there. So it looks like we started to get a little bit of foaming going on from the last shot, which worries me. This could get a lot worse, which is why I put it in a bigger beaker, just in case it decides it wants to foam over. Oh, that restarted the activity. A little more in. Okay. Alright, right. Ooh, that's hot. So I'm just going to keep this up until it looks like probably got all the base metal in solution. So this will probably take a while. I'll make you watch the whole thing. Be back when I think it's done. And I may have to add a little bit more distilled water to it just so we've got more liquid in there for the metal salts to dissolve into. But right now I'm just going to let it cook. I'll add some more distilled water later. Okay, so I've given this a good long cook. Lots of doses of nitric acid have gone in. The last couple of doses of acid didn't seem to produce any real reaction. So I think we've dissolved about as much base metal out of this stuff as we're going to with nitric acid alone. It's been off the heat for a while. It's had a chance to settle, so it's not so turbid. So first thing I want to do is check it for the presence of silver. So I was pretty much flabbergasted to find no silver at all in Ken's rags and filters. I'd like to know where that silver went. So what I've got here is a solution of tap water with a little bit of muriatic acid in it. And I'm wondering, because the stuff in here had cemented out on all this metal, and I'm wondering if the silver, if there was any present, might have cemented out on that too. So I'm wondering if this is where the silver went. And well, very faintly cloudy. It's possible I'm just bringing some turbidity over from this. I don't even know if we're actually seeing any silver. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Well, in any event, I think I've gone about as far with just straight nitric acid with this stuff as I can. So I'm going to decant off this liquid. And I'm going to carefully decant off this liquid. And we will treat whatever remains in the bottom of the beaker with some Aqua Regia. I need to reiterate that this is an experiment. This is 100% an experiment. I don't know if we're going to find any gold in here. Dragging over some solids. Let me let that settle a little bit and I'll decant off the rest of the liquid. Yeah, so I don't know if we're going to find any gold or PGMs in here or silver. This is an experiment. Yeah, that is so hard to say. I mean, it's slightly cloudy, but the liquid's slightly turbid too. So, let this settle for a minute. I'll decant off the rest of the liquid, and we'll get this back into the fume hood and hit it with some Aqua Regia and see if we get any indication of gold in it, okay? So here we are back in the fume hood with this stuff. Make a little Aqua Regia, get it running. Muriatic acid. A little bit of nitric acid. Well, that's about 4 milliliters. Let's see what happens with that as this warms up. Turn the hot plate on. Well, I'm already seeing some bubbling there. I mean, it's all stone cold, and look at that. Wow. Okay. And I swear I was getting no reaction with straight nitric, but Aqua Regia, we got something going on. Not necessarily gold or PGMs, though. There's probably still some base metals in there trying to go into solution. But we'll let this cook for a while and see what happens. Yeah, things are starting to warm up in there. We're getting some pretty vigorous bubbling, and we're getting some orange fumes in the beaker. All right. So I'm gonna let this continue until the reaction stops. And I'll put in some more nitric. And I'll just keep doing that until I don't get any more reaction when I put in more nitric acid. Alright, I wasn't going to make you guys watch every edition of nitric acid, but the last one I did produced a really, really vigorous reaction. And of course I didn't have the camera running. So I thought I'd start it up this time for the next edition, and we'll see what happens. I don't know. That last one may have been the last hurrah. Okay, we might be about done with acid additions then, because that's not producing much of a reaction. Boy, did I get a vigorous reaction. I was almost worried it was going to start foaming up towards the lip, but it didn't get that high. But that must have been the penultimate edition, and I think this is the ultimate one, because really there is not much going on there. Okay, I'm going to let this cook a little while longer, just because I just put some acid in it. And then I'll turn the heat off, let it cool down, let the turbidity settle, and we'll give it a stannous chloride test then and see if we have any gold in solution. Alright, and I'm still waiting on this stuff here to settle a little more before we can test it again for silver, and I suppose I can do a stannous chloride test on it as well to see if we have any, say, palladium in solution. That might be good to know. Okay. Now it's just a waiting game now. Okay, this stuff has had a chance to settle a little bit. The heat's been off for a little while. Let's get a little sample of this. Just a little sample is all we need. And do a stannous chloride test on it, okay? Let me zoom in real good here. Maybe turn the spoon this way so you can see it better. Yeah. Get a little. And I just released a video not too long ago about how I make my stannous chloride solution. I'll put a link in the upper right to that if you're interested in seeing it. Oh my! Looky, looky. Looky, looky. We got some more gold. Okay, and that's actually a reasonably decent indication of gold there too. That's not really weak. Okay. So I guess what I need to do with this stuff is denox it and then ice it down and then filter it and drop the gold out of it. And then decide what I'm going to do with the rest of that metal over there. Give that some thought. This stuff here seems to be staying permanently turbid. So I think I'm going to let this sit overnight and then we'll test it for silver again tomorrow. Because it is just not clear enough. But I'll bet by morning it will be. I hope. Okay, got my usual saturated solution of sulfamic acid for denoxing. I don't know whether we are overnoxed in this or not. I wouldn't be surprised. I was pretty heavy-handed with the nitric acid there because at the end I thought it was going to react some more, but it slowed down to nothing. So we might be pretty badly overnoxed, but this will take care of it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I'll just dump all this in. That'll make sure that we're good and denoxed. Okay. Let me go get some ice and ice this stuff down. Maybe we'll be able to get it filtered here in a little bit. Okay, here goes some ice. And we'll just let that cool down and melt. And dilute that liquid. And then we'll filter it and drop the gold. Alright, while we're waiting on that filtration, let's retest this stuff and see if there's any silver present. It's still kind of turbid, but it's reasonably clear up very near the very top of the water column. And again, I have some tap water here with a little splash of hydrochloric acid in it. So, let me put in a good amount of this stuff. And I can already tell if there's any silver here, there certainly isn't much. Nah, that's perfectly clear. Not really even cloudy at all. So I would say there is no silver in this stuff. Ken, how did you manage to keep silver entirely out of your filters and rags? That's amazing. I don't know how you did that. So once I've got some good fresh stannous chloride solution, I'll test this stuff for palladium too. I'm not going to get my hopes up there either. But we'll give it a shot before we discard the liquid. Let's test this liquid, which came from the nitric acid boils. And we'll see if it has any palladium in it. Because palladium will dissolve in nitric acid. So let's see what we got here. Huh. Well, I kind of call that inconclusive. Maybe slight hints of orange and green, but really, I mean, it started out green. So, I'm calling that inconclusive. I might put this liquid in my stock pot, though, just in case there is any precious metal in it. It can cement out on the copper in there, and we'll get it someday when I process the stock pot. But certainly there's nothing worth trying to go after in that right now. Okay, let's drop some gold. Okay, let's get the fume hood on. And we'll get some SMB in here. Stump out Biboni contains SMB, sodium metabisulfite. That's what we need to make the gold precipitate. And this is a fairly dirty solution, so it may take a fair amount of this because the metal compounds in there will tend to chew up the sulfur dioxide gas that's produced by the SMB going in. And not make it available for precipitating gold. I envy people who can dissolve and reprecipitate nearly pure gold all the time. I'm working with super dirty solutions. Alright, we'll let that sit and see what develops. Due to the dark green color of it, we may or may not notice any kind of color change. Although once the gold starts precipitating, the liquid should darken up nicely. So we'll just wait and see. Well, there we go. It's just been like 2 minutes, just long enough to put the SMB away, and well, that's darkened up a lot. So I would say we are getting a gold drop. I see anything floating on the surface? Yeah, there may be some gold floating on the surface. I expect this to be a dirty colloidal gold drop, but you know, every other gold drop I've got from this material of Ken's has been dirty and colloidal. But it's okay, I'm used to it. I'll clean it up. But first, we got to get it out of solution. So that's going to take a while. This is probably going to be, like I say, colloidal gold, very small. It's going to want to stay buoyed up in the water column by Brownian motion. So we'll just have to wait for it to slowly settle. It maybe tomorrow. Okay, so we'll be back. So it's the next day. Look at this. Look at this. That's more gold than I was expecting to get out of this stuff. We may have found where a significant portion of Ken's gold from his rags and filters is hiding. Because considering the amount of material I processed, I thought I didn't get all that much gold out of it. And several of you have commented too that, you know, the gold's got to be hiding somewhere and I just missed it. And I think we found where it's hiding. I think we have. I think it's hiding in this bucket, cemented out on all this steel in here and copper. So I think that's where a lot of the gold's hanging out. So I'll have to think about how to process this stuff efficiently. You know, I don't want to use a gallon of nitric acid on it. So I'll give that some thought. Meantime, let me start cleaning this stuff up. Okay? I'll decant off this Kool-Aid green liquid, and we'll see how much gold we got here. It's probably going to need to be re-refined. It's probably pretty dirty, nasty, considering the solution it came out of. But, you know, maybe I can at least get a quick weight on it without going through all the trouble of redissolving it and reprecipitating it from Aqua Regia, just to keep this video from getting too long. So, yeah. Let me see if I can get a weight on this stuff as is. Yeah, let me decant this liquid off into my temporary stock pot here. Yeah, that looks like a decent amount of gold. Of course, it always looks like a decent amount of gold when it's wet and covering the bottom of the beaker. You know, once it's all dried out, it's generally doesn't look like so much. But it's possible we got more than just gold here too. We might have, I don't know, some palladium, some platinum group metals mixed in. Take further refining. But I think I'm just going to keep this simple and let that settle again. I'll pour off the rest of that green liquid. I think I'm just gonna give this a few boils to clean it up, and then we'll dry it out and weigh it. Because this was just the loose powder that came off of this stuff that I processed. I mean, there's got to be like 10 or 20 times as much material in here as what I processed. Not that it's all going to be gold. I mean, a lot of it's the original metal the gold cemented out on, but still. There's probably a lot more gold to be gotten out of that bucket than is in this beaker. So, got to give some serious thought to how we're going to get it in an efficient, cost-effective manner. Okay, I've transferred the gold to a smaller beaker. Let me get the fume hood going. Turn this hot plate on. We'll give this initially a muriatic acid boil, and then a few distilled water boils to clean the gold up a little bit. I'm considering making a video on how I clean up dirty gold. If you'd be interested in seeing such a video, leave me a comment. Let me know if that interests you, because most of the gold drops I do, working with e-waste, are from very dirty solutions. And the gold comes out contaminated with all kinds of stuff and needs to be cleaned up before it's clean enough to be made into bullion. So, you know, I go through a whole process of cleaning up gold before, you know, it's good enough to be melted into bullion, in my humble opinion. So if you're interested in seeing that, leave a comment and let me know. So, part of the process is these boils, initially in hydrochloric acid and then in distilled water. If it's really dirty gold, this is borderline. At least it's laying on the bottom of the beaker nicely. If it's like colloidal, wants to stay suspended in a water column, if it's slightly disturbed, you know, I'll just siphon off the liquid and redissolve the whole mess back in Aqua Regia, filter it, and then redrop it. And usually it comes out a whole lot cleaner then and easier to handle. Anyway, we'll get this stuff cleaned up and we'll get a weight on it, and we'll add it to the total that we've got so far from Ken's Filters and Rags. The never-ending project of Ken's Filters and Rags. Alright, we got the hydrochloric acid boil going pretty good. I'm going to take that off the heat, let it cool down a bit, and then decant off the liquid, and we'll start with distilled water boils. Well, we have moved on to distilled water boils. So after the distilled water boils are done, I'll dry out the gold, and hopefully there'll still be enough there to move the scale when we try to weigh it. It looked like there was at the beginning, but the hydrochloric acid boil took some stuff away with it. I think that we didn't drop just gold. I think we dropped some other stuff. That hydrochloric acid turned really deep yellow and it looked like there was less stuff in the beaker afterwards. So we'll see what we've got left after the distilled water boils and drying it out. Well, there's the last distilled water boil. I will get that liquid decanted off and start drying out the gold so we can wait here in just a minute. Okay, let's see how much gold we've got here. It really doesn't look like very much after the cleanups. I think some of it went away with the hydrochloric acid. It may have been, we may have had some iron and copper sulfates in here, or sulfides, and they may have gone away with the acid boil. You get that when you're dropping gold out of really dirty solutions that contain a whole lot of base metals. You get those sulfides. Let's see if there's enough to weigh. Okay, 0.06 of a gram. Wow, I was really thinking there was more gold there than that. But we found a little bit more for Ken. Just a little bit though. My goodness, that's not much gold. Whew. Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff in the bottom of the beaker that dropped out wasn't really gold. There was some other stuff there. But it makes me wonder, because, you know, my mistake was I didn't weigh the amount of material I ran just, you know, to get this. It wasn't very much. It was in a, you know, a little bit in the bottom of a beaker about this size, and I got this much gold. So it makes me wonder how much more there is in that bucket out there and how I can get it. Probably many times this much, I would imagine, is in that bucket with all that scrap metal in there, plated out on it. Question is, how to get it? Let me think about that. Alright, that was somewhat disappointing. But I've got all this stuff in here, which is many times the amount that I processed. But since I only got like 0.06 grams of gold, many times 0.06 still isn't a whole lot of gold. So I got to think about how I want to process this stuff without losing my shirt. You know, I don't want to waste a lot of expensive nitric acid on it. I don't want to waste a lot of time on it. Time is money. So I'll think about that. If you guys have any good suggestions on how I should process this stuff, leave me a comment. Let me know. Yeah, hit me up with a comment. I've got some ideas. But let me hear yours. And maybe in a future video, we'll go after this stuff. And who knows, it might be with one of your suggestions rather than one of mine. So, yeah. Let me know what you think. And if you found this series of videos at all interesting, educational, informative, inspirational, whatever, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. And subscribe to see my future videos. There'll be others coming. Not necessarily just on this. Lots of different things. And check out my second channel, Electro Geek 64. Good stuff going on over there if you're all into electronics or retro computing. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching this one. Bye.